You're listening to Dirty Feet, a dance podcast. I'm Allison Burns. This is a very special episode of the Dirty Feet podcast. This week, I'm actually changing roles and I'm going to be interviewed rather than doing the interviewing. This entire episode features another podcast entirely called The Working Arts by Erica Martin. It's a new podcast that explores what it's like to work as an artist in reality. Erica is based out of London, England, and she speaks to a variety of different artists from a variety of different countries, theater artists, musicians, piano players, singers, and myself, a dancer. So you get a lot of different perspectives, and she asks the really nitty-gritty questions about what it means to be an artist. It's an amazing exploration of the behind-the-scenes reality of artists' lives, and it's wonderful. So this is the 8th episode, which features myself being interviewed by Erica. There are 7 other episodes that are excellent, and I highly recommend you check it out. So for those of you who are new to listening to Dirty Feet and don't necessarily have a context on who I am, Allison, this is an interesting way to learn more about your host. Now I'm going to turn it over right away to the working arts. Enjoy.
Welcome to the podcast. It's Erica. I'm back with episode 8. Super excited to share with you the second interview from my Montreal series. This one features Allison Burns, who is my very first dancer on the Working Arts. I met Allison this past summer through my brother Travis. They're an item. And I was very happy to have the chance to sit down with her a few weeks ago and talk about her life working in the contemporary dance scene in Ottawa in Canada. Allison also helped me out immensely when I was starting to work on the Working Arts because she has been the host of her own podcast about dance for a long time now called Dirty Feet, which you can subscribe to on iTunes or through nomoreradio.com. Allison and I enjoyed a latte, a homemade latte, and the company of my good friend Maureen's little dog, Rosie. So if you do hear any scratchy noises, it's just Rosie getting herself settled in. Enjoy. I have lived a passionate life. I've sung songs of mourning, of strife. I have won wars with the drum and the fife. Couldn't you do the same? Thank you. Thank you for having a coffee with me and Rose and talking some dance stuff.
My pleasure.
How did you get into dance?
So the way I remember it is my parents kind of threw me into a bunch of activities when I was young. They had me try piano and try violin and ballet, and the only thing that stuck was the dance. I'm, little secret, a terrible musician, so none of that really panned out very well. But dance was something that I was still really enthusiastic about and wanted to keep doing, every year when it came time to register for extracurricular activities. I was like, yeah, let's keep doing that. So that was just something I did recreationally until I got into high school, and I went to an arts high school. So that was kind of
lucky.
Yes. It was the best. It was amazing to go to a high school where people had auditioned to be there. There was just such a difference where people wanted to be at school.
Oh, shit, yeah.
So I don't relate to a lot of the high school movies. It wasn't my experience.
Yeah,
I had a really great high school experience. So that was a moment too where I was kind of choosing to put dance as a priority in my life.
Yeah.
And then again, when the choice came to what university to go to and then to choose dance as my main field of study, that again was another moment where I chose that art form. So yeah.
What kind of did you study all kinds of dance, or did you dabble and then specialize in one thing?
So growing up, I took a lot of ballet. That's where I think a lot of people start.
Yeah.
And then through there, you know, I was doing the RAD, which is the Royal Academy of Dance syllabus, which includes character dancing, which is like you learn a little Spanish dance, a little dance from Hungary, a little Russian dance. And then I took jazz very briefly. And then once it came to high school at Canterbury, it's the high school I went to in Ottawa, it's modern and ballet are the two main dance forms that you study.
Is modern like contemporary? Or is it?
Yeah, I usually describe modern as like the rejection of ballet.
Okay.
So that's the style where you get rid of the shoes, you're barefoot, you get into the floor. It's a lot of contraction, release, suspension, a lot of like principles that are counter to the ballet, like being very high up on your toes and lifted and straight lines. It's a little more earthy and rounded, flexed feet. And then contemporary dance is a lot more all-encompassing. It kind of involves a blending of different dance forms and also brings in like theatrics and visual art and kind of becomes more conceptual and really free. It's really tricky because you can see two contemporary dance shows that look like they have nothing to do with one another and they're still considered the same style.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, I guess it's more about self-expression.
Yes.
Right?
I would say.
Because you make shows, right, that are just, are they sort of like devised, right?
Like choreographed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, and is it often just you or is it you and other disciplines like sort of mixed inside? Or art forms, I should say.
Yeah, I almost always have a collaborator, a partner in crime. I usually like to collaborate with musicians because that's a weakness for me and I can't go out and write my own score, or even sometimes I'm just not the best person to consult with when I'm trying to score something or find a piece of music for it. So I often seek out somebody who has more skill in that area to help, you know, complement my weakness there. So high school was modern and ballet, and then university was a contemporary dance program. And once I got to university, I dropped my ballet practice. So I have 14 years of ballet, and then contemporary became my everything. But however, that's not necessarily true because I've been expanding my studies and taking things like salsa and break dance and just trying to make sure I'm as versatile as I can be. I even see, like, I was rock climbing for a while there, and, like, that informs my movement as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I guess anything that involves movement of some kind is going to affect...
Totally. Yoga.
It makes me think, stupidly, because we were talking about Bring It On.
I love it.
It makes me think of, like, the last routine they decide to make, you know, as a team, they just devise their own routine, you know, at the end. Mm-hmm. And they pick little things from different... art forms like martial arts and contemporary dance and like all these things in order to make their cheerleading routine.
Yeah.
But it's like anything that they were like, let's just learn everything and then we can make something that's us. Yeah. You know what I mean? No, obviously it's not the same thing, but that's the person that came to my mind.
Totally. Why not?
Anyway.
There you go. And that probably connects with more people out there than like
that's what this is like, you guys. Remember, Bring It On. The first one.
That's basically my life. Right?
My life is basically Bring It On. That's not a bad thing. So did you ever want to be a ballerina? Was that ever like, do you find that was like sometimes their teachers' goals to like form you into ballerina?
Yeah, I think very briefly. There's growing up, especially like in the younger years of my studying ballet, like the point shoes and the tutu were things that were like held over our head. Like that, those were goals that you wanted to hit. Like you wanted to get to the right age where your ankles were strong enough that you got to put the point shoes on and take those point classes. And then like you had to get the right roll, and then you got a tutu, and you got to buy a tutu and wear it at the show. And it was like this is what you lived for as a little ballerina. So definitely there were moments in my life where I wanted to be a ballerina. I got to perform in the Nutcracker because Les Grands Ballets Canadiens, they do, I think it's once a year or once every 2 years they do it in Montreal, and then on the alternate years they do it in Ottawa.
Okay.
And they always audition the local kids for the roles, from like mice to rats to like what they called the Oriental dancers.
Okay.
And I was a reindeer, and so that was a lot of fun.
That's so exciting. Isn't that exciting, Rose? She just looked at me right when you said that, like, oh my god.
She's so impressed. So, but it wasn't really, it was like a flash in the pan. I think I learned real quickly that to be that kind of performer, you have to give so much, and I just wasn't willing to give that much. I also don't have the right body for it. It's a really specific body for ballet, for classical dance. And I'm very happy with my body, but it's not a ballet body.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I guess that's, I mean, yeah. I think more and more, like the more I talk to regular people.
Normies.
Regular normies. No, actually, what I mean by that is just like regular old artists, not people who are, straight up. Like if I were interviewing a straight up ballerina, then we might have a different conversation. But people who tend to dabble in a lot of different things, or who are doing more contemporary stuff, contemporary music, contemporary this, that, or art or whatever, it tends to be more like, I did, look into that obviously, and I've been trained and blah, 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 but it's more about me as an individual, my art, the stuff I bring to the table, and what can I create, or what can I create with another person, rather than recreating somebody else's vision from a couple hundred years ago type thing. Do you know what I mean?
Totally. And I think I feel the same way though about ballet as about being like an intensive contemporary or modern dancer, because there are some powerhouses out there that just blow my mind, just like built and fit and fluid and just gorgeous to watch on stage. But I recognize just how much time they've given and dedication. I mean, then at that point you're talking about everything you eat, how much sleep you get, like what your daily routine is in terms of going to the gym, doing your yoga, doing your dance practice. Like everything in your life is about being that.
Yeah.
And so whatever the genre was, I wasn't willing to go to that extreme. I'm much happier having like a portfolio of skills and strengths. And I recognize that means like I can't go to go and audition and expect to get anywhere. Which is why I do a lot of independent projects. I do a lot of collaborations. I produce my own work frequently, because that's the only way I can guarantee that I'm going to get on stage.
Yeah.
So.
And you can guarantee what it is you're doing on stage, because when you win an audition for something, then you're it's out of your control what you're presenting in a way, because if you're part of somebody else's vision, or you have a bit part in something or whatever, it's like you can't express yourself in the way you can when you are deciding what you're putting on the stage, kind of. When you're choreographing something, so if you're doing it for yourself, let's say, in your, like, devising a piece, I guess, do you have a story in mind that you're trying to tell, or is it like you just start moving and then something comes from that, or is there other options? I don't know what it is.
Yeah, fair enough. Though there's a lot of different ways that I've created work. The university degree I did at Concordia is primarily a choreographic degree, so that's where their focus is really more than creating like dancer technicians. Like they want to create people who think creatively and can kind of make a composition of dance that's outside of the box and just stretch their thinking. So in that way, I've been giving lots of tools on how to start something like that. And what is the initial inspiration, and then how do you take that? And usually it's like I take a theme, improvise on that theme, and begin to devise like a mood or a look or some sort of compartment that the dance is going to exist in. Because the other thing is that there's so much that I want to say and that I think it looks interesting on stage, and it's usually a matter of just cutting it down and saying, okay, no, but what's relevant to what this piece is and what this is that we're trying to say right here. And I have been working with narrative, which is really, I think for me, what makes a difference between like a dance that feels really good to do in the studio for myself and something worth showing to other people.
Right, yeah.
I think I consume a lot of dance.
Okay.
And I get upset when I see something on stage that looks to me like an awesome experiment and that they're having a great time, but I'm not really clear why I'm here.
Yeah. Okay.
Why it's important that they've shown it to me. So I think narrative is a nice way to do that. I also leave a lot of room for my body and the movement to tell me something about whatever I'm exploring.
Okay.
So I often don't start at the beginning.
Yeah.
I'll start somewhere in the middle and see what happens, and I don't always know where it's going to end. Because sometimes through improv I will understand something, or through repetition of a movement I'll have a realization of some sort. Just, yeah.
I was thinking about this the other day, that regular people, and I do mean regular people, like they have a easier time expressing themselves through speaking and writing and tweeting and all this kind of thing, but expressing themselves physically is difficult because I guess they're not used to doing it, and so using your body sort of like in an expressive way is kind of daunting and scary, and it's because it's makes you feel kind of vulnerable and all these kinds of things. Which is, I think, why you enjoy teaching, right? Because you get to see how that impacts people. Like, how do you find that it impacts people when they're moving around for the first time in a dance class?
Well, I think first of all, like, my approach to teaching comes a lot from that, the same philosophy of my relationship to dance, where I'm like, okay, why does it have to be all or nothing? Rosie,
what are you doing? Just sit down. Anyway.
Right. So, totally distracted. So I'm sure a lot of people feel this way about something that's very important to them, but I feel like I would love more people to have a relationship with dance and to not feel so shy about it, not feel so afraid of it. And I'm also telling that to myself, that it's okay for me to pursue this, even though I'm not part of, an amazing company that everybody knows the name of. Like, it's still, I still own it. It's still part of me. It's still valuable and valid. So I want other people to be able to feel that as well, whatever their relationship is to it. And I'm getting a lot of people in my classes who have either never ever touched dance before, or who used to dance when they were little and at some point made the choice not to dance anymore and miss it.
Yeah.
And it's often a very emotional thing for people, that they feel like, that ship has sailed, that time has passed. It's not something that they have access to anymore.
Yeah.
So I really like being able to offer both of those people a place where they can move. And I had somebody tell me the last session I taught that they found that I tricked them into dancing, which is really exciting. I was like, perfect, because I use a lot of imagination, and we do a really long led improvisation. So they're I'm getting people to think a lot about what they're doing, and they're running through tasks, and they're moving in whatever way feels good based on that task, and they kind of get out of they don't think so much about what they're doing with their bodies, and then all of a sudden they're in their bodies. And I'm really excited about being able to offer that kind of mind-body connection to people. And I love practicing that way myself as well.
Mm-hmm. It's very expressive, isn't it?
Yeah,
yeah,
totally. And it's also great for if you have an injury or limited capacity in one way or another physically, you're not excluded from the experience.
Yeah.
You just take care of yourself in the way you need to.
Yeah, and you move in your own way. And it's not necessarily, you have to do it this way, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And it's kind of like a workaround too, rather than a traditional dance class where you're going to learn a sequence and then everyone's going to do it over and over again until you kind of get to a point where you can dance it. So the idea with the structured improv is we're just going to start dancing.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, totally. So how do you see, because you work a lot in the community, locally, or I think wherever you live, you tend to work a lot in the community, in the dance community. What are the kind of changes that you're trying to work on in the community now, or what changes would you like to see in the dance community?
Ooh. So I just moved back to Ottawa in July. So I've been there for 6 months already. It's been kind of like a whirlwind of running around trying to meet as many people as I can and talk to as many people in the industry who can give me an idea of what's happening in that community. And I think what conclusions I've come to, which are probably not that different from other places, is that there's an issue with audience development and audience education that, you know, basically there is no audience. And there is no audience because people don't understand contemporary dance, are afraid of it, are not interested, or see one end of the spectrum and don't enjoy it and miss out on the other end of the spectrum that they might actually really enjoy.
Yeah.
Because it is such a wide range of talent as well as style. And the other issue for Ottawa specifically is that there's not a really big community or established community. So it's growing. It's at like a really interesting point right now where there's the Ottawa Dance Directive and the School of Dance and a few small companies that are kind of offering opportunities for dance artists in the city. And you can kind of hobble together a career there as a dance artist, but right now there's not a lot of spaces available for those kind of people. So it's a matter of like creating more job opportunities and getting more artists in and just building it like that, which I think is going to happen. I think it has been happening, and I think I'm arriving at a really interesting time for that. And being a choreographer myself, you know, I'm producing a show for June and I'm hiring local artists for it, so I'm contributing to that growth in the community. Audience education is a weird one though. It's funny. There's a few programs being run in the city, like Taralouse Danse works with the Francophone community in bringing workshops to schools in Ontario, and then the School of Dance does the same thing with the English community. So there's projects. People are enthusiastic about this, and things are happening, and audiences are being educated, and it's hopeful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good that you weren't just like, oh, it's just a complete shit show and like, I don't know what I'm doing here. And
well, definitely, like, I get down sometimes and I'm like, it's funny, like, sometimes you work so hard to promote a show or promote my class has been hard too, because I'm new to the city, and it's like, am I just trying to sell something that nobody wants? Like, and that's when I have to come back to like, okay, why am I putting this on stage? Why do people need to see this? Why do people need access to this class? What is going on here that is not just for me as the dance nerd that really wants other people to appreciate this?
I just sort of believe that like everyone needs to just have therapy in their lives in some way, and I think that if everyone like on the planet had therapy / food and water and all these things, everything would be okay. We would understand each other better, and we would be able to express ourselves and not bottle it up and become, mentally ill and all of these kinds of things that stand in your way. And I think that art is a huge way of expressing yourself. That's why we have stuff like music therapy and anything that you do physically. Definitely dance is so expressive, and I think the more people, and exact audience education, but also just sort of straight up education, like if we had more of this stuff in schools, if people are learning this early on, because I was never told. I didn't go to an art school at all. I went to a school that was just like a high school that was more geared towards the sciences, I think, and like history a little bit and stuff, but it was never like you have to take a dance class. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes there's like a music requirement or something, but there's never a dance requirement. And I think expressing yourself physically can really help you. It is a form of therapy. Do you not find?
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And I've looked into getting certified as a dance therapist in the past, and for many reasons decided not to go that route. But like, absolutely, I find it extremely therapeutic for myself, and I've had nothing but positive reactions from people who take my class, and I just recognize that physical activity, just full stop, is amazing for your well-being and for your happiness. You get those endorphins going, you improve your self-esteem, like it's incredible what it can do for you. And then when it gets into this realm, of artistic expression as well, and there is something divine there, certainly, and something really healing about dance.
Yeah. how do you make money? Or how have you made money in the past?
I don't know.
I don't know. Excellent. Just because I know this is something that I tend to bring up a lot, just because
It's important to talk about.
It's important to talk about. Yeah. It's something, you know, my friend and I have this conversation. We're talking about when we introduce ourselves to somebody, and you know, we say, "Oh, I'm an actor," or whatever, and we tend to sort of downplay the art that we do, because we don't necessarily make money all the time doing it, and my friend started saying it with more like, no, I do this, and I'm doing this right now, rather than, so I'm just wondering, do you ever feel that way? Or just as a sidebar?
Of course. I believe that statistically, dance artists make the least amount of money in terms of artists in Canada.
Yeah, okay.
It's pretty brutal.
Really?
Something that happened when I moved to Ontario was I joined the Canadian Alliance of Dance Artists, the Ontario division.
Okay.
And they have there's a reason that I'm saying all this. They have a best practices guide, and it includes things like minimum payments, like it's not a union, nothing is required. They're just making suggestions on how the industry should be, what the standards should be. And it's been incredibly helpful for me to read that document, and I'm just like, I should have read this 10 years ago. Because it allows for all of it. It's like, chances are, if you're a dance artist, you have another job.
Yeah.
These are the things, like just little places in this document where they say things like, so if somebody changes a rehearsal last minute and it requires you to miss a shift, you don't have to attend the rehearsal. It's built in to protect the dance artists, with the understanding that they're not making a lot of money, that they're likely not employees, that they're working on contract, and it gives an idea of what the standards should be. And I think it's everyone's responsibility in the arts industry to do their best to maintain those standards. Because as soon as I say, I don't have any money, so these artists that I want to hire, I'm going to see if I can get their time for free, that's perpetuating the problem.
Yes.
It's hard for me to then turn around and say, okay, I need somebody to pay me for the work that I'm going to do for them. So I'm setting out, I haven't been an Ontario resident for long enough to be eligible for a lot of the grants over there.
Yeah, okay.
But I'm going to be paying my artists anyway, because I want that to be in motion, and I want to help the industry in that way.
Yes.
In terms of being paid, I mean, there's the trifecta, right, where you need two of the three. You either need the money, or to enjoy what you're doing, or to be learning something. So as long as you have two of those three, then the project is worth it.
I've heard that before.
Yeah?
Do it again.
Okay, so either making money,
okay,
enjoying what you're doing, and or be learning something. So, for example, I was working on a project for several years in Montreal, and try as we might, we could not find a way to properly fund my position there, which was fine until I stopped learning. In which case, even though my heart was in it and I loved it, that was the only of the three that I was getting, and I had to stop working on the project. So I think it's a lot of that, just like reflecting on what the project is, if I'm getting money or not. And then, of course, I've worked mostly in like the English language theater industry and administration roles to just pay my rent.
Okay.
And I've recognized recently that I need to be working part-time, because I'm not going to stop creating dance and taking on dance projects. So I need to leave space for that in my life, and live on a smaller budget for the sake of being able to do what I love. Because often, I think, like 75% of the time, I'm not being paid for the artistic work that I do in dance.
Yeah.
So
tell me about your podcast.
Okay.
How did you start podcasting?
So when I was still in university, I was a guest on Movement Museum, which at the time was a CKUT show, which is the McGill radio station, like the community radio station. And the show was about dance, and it was a weekly show. And I joined the team after being interviewed. And I eventually took over the production for the show when the producer left. And I ran that for a while. But there were a few restrictions on it, like it was the same time every week. It was an hour long. You had to incorporate ads. So for a lot of those reasons, we decided to go rogue. I had a team of 2 other people at that time, and another friend who was starting a network called No More Radio, a podcast network.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we jumped ship, and we left Movement Museum for Dirty Feet, which is the podcast that I founded on the No More Radio network. And we just had more flexibility that way. We could make the episodes however long we wanted to. We could go to the artists, or the artists could come to us, and we didn't have to deal with ads or anything like that. And the idea, too, was that it could go anywhere it wanted to from there. Which something we did eventually was toured across the country a couple times, just like while I was on a dance tour anyway.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's
so
nice.
we got to meet people in like Vancouver and Victoria and Edmonton and Saskatoon and New York, and just get to talk to a bunch of different artists and all over the place, which we wouldn't have been able to do. Still operating out of the radio station. So that was cool. We ran it for 3 years straight, never missing a week, which was really cool.
That's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah. And then it kind of, we went through a transition period where some like throughout the history of the podcast, people have come and gone in terms of collaborators. And now it's currently just myself working on the project, and it doesn't come out weekly anymore. It comes out probably about monthly, just when the opportunity arises to do an interview. That's cool. The podcast. Dirty Feet. So we have like 170 some odd episodes, and our goal from the get-go was to make them, often we're talking to people right before they produce a show as promotion for them, but they're not all time specific, and a lot of them hold up on their own. And we've talked to some really exciting people that if you are also dance nerds, you would be excited about. Yeah. So that's been great. It's been an awesome experience for me as a creator to get to pick the brain of other creators. Well,
it's really, really interesting, because everyone has a different story and has a different background, and you never know what you're going to learn from the other person, and I think it promotes collaboration as well, and just a way of just meeting other people who have the same kind of struggles as you, or have the same kind of goals and passions and stuff, and it just sort of feeds that engine, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Inspired.
Yeah. Allison's my little podcast guru. She was very helpful when I was starting to do this, and I was like, I don't know what to do.
My pleasure.
You were saying about audience education. How do you feel about shows like Dancing with the Stars and like Strictly Come Dancing from the UK and all that kind of stuff that sort of promotes dance, but not like it? Obviously, it's not promoting contemporary dance, really. But how do you feel about those kinds of shows?
I mean, ultimately, they're awesome.
Yeah.
Like, registration, especially, like, with boys and dance, has skyrocketed since those kinds of shows.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Like hip-hop being, like, a dance that you can learn in a studio and practice and do on shows. Like, people just went crazy. And it's awesome. Like, and there was definitely, like, a period of time where myself and all my colleagues, like, every time you mentioned you were a dance artist, somebody would say, oh, have you auditioned for... Yeah. Do you think so? You think you can dance? It's like, no. But for all the... Well, it's jazz, basically.
Okay.
In my opinion, they just kind of... Everything's about kicks and spins and impressive acrobatic jazz stuff. And then they throw a different title on it and put a different costume. But it's ultimately all kind of the same flashy style. So it's not necessarily a great representation of kind of the professional contemporary dance industry in Canada, which needs more representation. But at the same time, it's done something for dance that wasn't happening in terms of making it more popular and showing a different side of it other than ballet. So I think it's great. Ultimately, I think it's awesome.
Yeah, that's how my boyfriend says it's about Strictly Come Dancing in the UK, which is ballroom.
Okay.
And he just like, who would have thought that this would have been popular
Like the idea of, taking sort of minor celebrities and getting them to ballroom dance. Like it seems like it's a weird concept, and yet it's like it gets you hooked.
But people love dance. People love musicals. People love those old movies with all those awesome tap dance scenes in them. Like people love music videos.
Yeah, and I
love dance.
And I think it's one of those things too. You just don't know you like it until you see it, type thing. Because I never would have thought of ballroom, because for me, I watch Strictly. That's my thing. Because the girl that I worked with in the summer just won Strictly, actually. And so I started watching it because of her, and so it got to the point where I was like, oh, I don't know, that move was this and that, and you get really kind of into the whole thing, and so I've been like telling my boyfriend, let's go take a dance class, nice. And he's like, oh no, I don't want to do it, blah blah blah. Anyways, but I think anything that educates an audience in that is going to sort of promote it, but I think
create curiosity, right?
Yeah. And then maybe they'll go and see a completely different kind of dance show another day.
You can only hope.
Yeah. Well, that's like, I saw a thing, it was an interview by Chelsea Handler, I think, with, of all people, where is this going, this comment? With the mayor of LA.
Okay.
And he was talking about, they were talking about Trump and all these things, and he was saying that, people make a bigger deal of the federal election, but what's more important is voting locally and in your municipality. So what are the changes that you can make locally rather than on a federal level? And that, when you're making those things that directly impact you, that's when you have more power as a citizen rather than your vote of a federal thing. And so I guess my point is just that how important it is for what you're doing in the dance community versus, like, it's nice that we have stuff like Dancing with the Stars and blah blah blah, but it's really important to promote dance and the art in your community, because if you can get them to have an interest in it or to try it, then it's more likely that these things will get funding in the future and get recognition.
Yeah, because it's about how many people that you touch, and it's hard to touch them from an impersonal place.
Yeah. Tell me about what you're doing. Tell me about your projects.
Okay.
In the future.
Well, I mean, there's one in June, which I'm really excited about. And when you were asking me about creation, I mean, this wasn't part of your question, but like in terms of like sources of inspiration, like this one in particular is a book, and it's not the first time I've been inspired by a book to create a dance show.
Okay.
But this one's Jitterbug Perfume by Tom Robbins.
Okay.
And it's all about immortality. The show's going to be called Do You Want to Live Forever?
Uh-huh.
And so I'm, my collaboration with the musician in this case is funding dependent.
Okay.
So I may recycle tracks that have already been created by friends rather than engage a composer to create new stuff, depending on whether or not I get some of the stuff I've applied for. But the main sources, my main collaboration is going to be with Travis.
Okay.
Who's going to be doing a lot of writing poetry for the work.
Awesome.
And performing it as well. And then I have a local Ottawa dancer who's going to be performing, and I'm really excited. She's one of those powerhouses that I mentioned earlier.
Cool.
That just like blows your mind when you see them perform. So really excited about having
nice.
Ali on the project. And there's a couple other cast members who don't know that they're involved yet. But it is going to be much more narrative, I think, than the other work. And have that multi, like theatrics and poetry and dance in there, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's in its very early stages. It's still like 6 months away, but it's gonna be.
You're like beaming though when you talk about it. That's awesome.
I'm really excited. Well, and a lot of this, like, I've done research on this for like a couple years already. I've been working with a theater artist in Toronto, and we kind of work together whenever we find ourselves in the same city, and we've been finding a lot of inspiration in the subject matter. So it's just ready to just be organized and put into a show, basically. Good. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think that maybe does it for projects. I'm going to continue to teach my classes. I'm also teaching kids, which is a lot of fun. And I'm teaching kind of teenagers too in a different studio, and we're going to be doing creation together. So
good.
I'm going to kind of give them tools to create their own choreography for their end of year show.
Awesome.
And I'm really looking forward to that. And they're really enthusiastic about it too.
That's great.
That's fun. So it's another level of teaching.
How do you see the future of, do you see the future of art in that way as being sort of a way more collaborative between sort of interdisciplinary collaboration? Like, or do you think we're going to find new art forms because of collaboration?
I think that's certainly my journey right now. I think, especially in school, I did a lot of like pure dance projects where it's like everything was about the body, like minimalist costumes, like as you know, silence if I can get away with it, just like dance for dance's sake. Let's just break it down.
Yeah.
And I think this discussion of like, am I trying to feed people something that they don't want, and what is appropriate to put on stage and what is appropriate for me to do because I enjoy, like I think my journey has been definitely more multidisciplinary. I've done a lot of work where it's comedic, so a little bit of clowning and dance, and live music has been such a draw too for my choreographic work. So I think in terms of trying to satisfy an audience and have something relevant to share, I think I've reached out to different disciplines to do that. Globally, I think certainly contemporary dance is all about blending. It is all about collaboration with different art forms. I expect more of that will happen, for sure.
Next time on the podcast, we'll hear from another Montreal artist. So make sure to subscribe on iTunes. And if you feel compelled to, write us a review. Why not? You can also submit yourself as an artist to the podcast by visiting the website, theworkingartspodcast.com. On the website, you can also get all the latest news from the previous artists that have been on the show, as well as Allison's. To everyone who's already subscribed, thank you. You are awesome. Can't wait for you to listen to episode 9. See you later. Bye.
I want a story others would want to tell. To say I ran, I fell, I explored the unknown. I want my portrait colored with faults and powers, shaded by darkest hours that beget my face. I have lived a passionate life. I've sung songs of mourning, of strife. I have won wars with the drum and the fife. Couldn't you do the same?
You've been listening to Dirty Feet. I'm Allison Burns with a few thank yous. First to Paula Flalo and the No More Radio Network. Also to Mainline Theatre and Montreal Improv Theatre. And to all present and past team members who can be found on our website, dirtyfeetpodcast.com. You can also find us on Facebook at Dirty Feet Podcast and follow us on Twitter at Dirty Feet. Thank you for listening. Until next time.